The Hummingbird's Persistence. Chapter 1. Dust and Dreams. Lila's world was the color of dry earth. Amberwood Village baked under the sun. Dust coated everything. Her small home had walls of cracked clay. Her father, Eris, farmed a stubborn patch of land. Her mother, Elara, mended clothes for others. Their life was a tight knot of work and worry. Lila, just 10, felt the knot tighten daily. She saw the lines on her parents' faces. She heard the tired sighs at night. Hunger was a familiar, unwelcome guest. Yet, Lila dreamed. She dreamed in colors dust couldn't touch. Vivid greens of faraway forests. Deep blues of oceans she'd only heard about in whispers. Her secret place was the old oak tree on the hill. There, she'd trace letters in the dirt. She'd learned them from tattered books borrowed briefly. One day, she whispered to the wind, "I will learn everything." But dreams felt heavy, like carrying water uphill, especially when reality was so sharp. "Lila, stop moon-gazing," her father would call gently. "The beans won't pick themselves." So she'd work, hands small, back aching, but her mind flew far beyond Amberwood's dusty borders. She imagined stories, cities of glass, machines that flew, knowledge like a vast, cool river, a river she desperately wanted to swim in. The village school was a single room. Teacher Marin did her best, but books were scarce. Slates were cracked. Many children left early to work the fields. Lila clung to every lesson. She absorbed words like parched soil drinks rain. "Why bother, Lila?" her friend Benji asked, kicking a stone. "We're farmers. Always will be." Lila looked at her dirty hands. "I don't know," she murmured. "But learning, it feels like light." Inside, a small voice argued. "What if Benji's right? What use are dreams here?" Fear, cold and slick, coiled in her stomach. But then she'd remember a new word learned, a story half understood, and the light flickered back, brighter than before. She held onto that light, tight. Chapter 2. The Weight of Silence. The rains didn't come. The sun beat down relentlessly. Aris's fields turned to cracked wastelands. Hope withered like the crops. Lila saw the fear deepen in her father's eyes. He worked longer hours. His shoulders slumped lower. One scorching afternoon, he didn't return for lunch. Elara's face went pale. They found him by the well, collapsed. The village healer shook his head slowly. His heart. Too much strain. Just like that, the world shattered. The silence that followed Aris's passing was deafening. It filled their small house. It pressed on Lila's chest until she couldn't breathe. Grief was a physical ache, a hollow emptiness where her father's laugh used to be. Practical worries crashed down immediately. How would they eat? Pay rent? Elara worked until her fingers bled. Mending, washing, cleaning for anyone who could spare a coin. Lila left school. There was no choice. Her dreams felt like childish nonsense now. Dust on the wind. She took whatever work she could find. Carrying water, weeding gardens, scraping pots at the inn. Her hands grew rough. Her back ached constantly. The old oak tree felt miles away. One evening, exhausted, she found her dirt letters under the tree, washed faint by a rare drizzle. Learn. The word was almost gone. Lila traced it with a trembling finger. Tears blurred the fading lines. "How can I?" she thought, despair rising like a tide. "Papa's gone. Mama's breaking. What good are dreams now?" She looked at the distant hills, purple in the twilight. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. "Little bird," he'd say, "even the smallest wing beat changes the air." Was it true? Could she still beat her wings? The weight of silence threatened to crush her. But deep down, a tiny ember glowed. Faint, but not extinguished. Not yet. Chapter 3. Whispering Pages. Life became a relentless cycle. Work, body, hunger, daita, sleep. Repeat. Elara grew thinner, quieter. Lila felt the sharp edges of poverty constantly. Yet, the ember persisted. Words called to her. One day, delivering mended shirts to teacher Marin, Lila paused. Marin's small room overflowed with books. Old worn, but full of magic. Do you still read, teacher? Layla asked hesitantly. Marin looked at her, eyes kind but sad. Always, child. Books are friends that never leave. She gestured to a low shelf. You may borrow one, if you promise to bring it back safe. Lila's heart leaped. She chose a thin book with a faded blue cover. Tales of Distant Shores. That night, by the flickering oil lamp, Lila opened it. The words swam before her tired eyes. Many were unfamiliar, but she sounded them out. Slowly, painfully. It took an hour to read one page, but she did it. A story about a girl finding a seashell, a tiny piece of the ocean far away. Lila felt a spark ignite. She borrowed another book, and another. She read during stolen moments, while waiting for water to boil. Before dawn, when the world was still asleep, her mother watched, a worried frown on her face. Layla, you need rest. The work is hard. It doesn't tire my mind, Mama, Lila replied softly. It helps. Reading became her refuge, her secret rebellion against the dust. She learned new words. Resilience, dot. Persevere. Horizon. She read about mountains, stars, inventors, explorers, people who faced hardship and didn't give up. Could I be like that? She wondered. Just a little? The work didn't lessen. Hunger still pinched, but her inner world expanded. She started writing again. Not in dirt, but on scraps of paper salvaged from the inn. Simple thoughts, descriptions of the sky, feelings she couldn't say aloud. What are you scribbling? Benji asked one day, now taller, broader from farm work. Nothing important, Lila mumbled, hiding the paper. Benji shrugged. Still wasting time on books. Won't fill your belly. His words stung. Doubt whispered. Is he right? Is this foolish? But later, reading about a scientist who failed 100 times, she thought. Maybe failing is part of it. Maybe trying is everything. She kept reading, kept writing. One small page, one small word, each one a tiny wing beat against the heavy air. Chapter 4. The Crumbling Wall. 3 years passed. Lila was 16. Life was still hard, but manageable. Elara's health, however, began to falter. A persistent cough worsened. Medicine cost money they didn't have. Desperation clawed at Lila. She needed more than odd jobs. The village notice board offered a little hope. Then, she saw it. A notice from the regional administrative office in Stonecross, a day's walk away. Junior clerk wanted. Basic reading, writing, arithmetic. Apply in person. Her heart hammered against her ribs. A real job. Steady pay. Medicine for Mama. But Stonecross felt like another world. Big, noisy, intimidating. And the notice mentioned a test. Panic flared. I only learned scraps. What if I fail? What if they laugh? The fear was paralyzing. Benji's voice echoed. Wasting time. She almost didn't go. But Elara's cough, harsh in the quiet night, decided it. I have to try, Mama, Lila said, packing a small bundle. Elara touched her cheek. My brave little bird, fly. The journey was long and tiring. Stonecross bustled with people and carts. The administrative building loomed large, its stone walls imposing. Inside, a stern woman sat behind a desk. Name? Purpose? Lila's voice trembled. Lila, F from Amberwood, for the clerk test. The woman raised an eyebrow, looking at Lila's worn clothes. Very well. Room 3, now. The test room held a dozen others. All looked older, sharper, cleaner. Lila felt like a weed among roses. The paper had sums she barely understood. Passages to read aloud. Questions about procedures. Her hands shook. Sweat beaded on her forehead. She stumbled over words. fumbled the arithmetic. The stern woman watched, expressionless. Time crawled. Finally, it was over. Results posted tomorrow, the woman announced. Lila walked out, her cheeks burning with shame. She knew. She had failed. Utterly. The walk back to Amberwood was the longest of her life. Failure tasted bitter, like ash. Stupid. Foolish. Benji was right. The wall she'd tried to climb had crumbled, burying her hopes. Reaching home, Ilara saw her face. She opened her arms. Lila collapsed into them, sobbing. I failed, Mama. I wasn't good enough. Ilara held her tight. You went, my love. You faced the giant. That is not failure. That is courage. But the rejection felt like a physical wound. The dream of helping her mother, of escaping the dust, seemed shattered. That night, looking at the stars, Lila cried until she had no tears left. Is this it? She thought, despair heavy. Do I just accept the dust? Then she remembered the girl in the story finding the seashell. It wasn't the ocean, but it held its echo. Maybe failing is just finding out where the wall is, she thought slowly. So I know where to start climbing again. It was a small thought, but it was enough to keep the ember alive. Barely. Chapter 5. Seeds in stony ground. Failure was a bruise that took time to fade. The sting of rejection lingered. But Lila remembered the girl with the seashell. She remembered her father's words about wing beats. And she remembered her mother's cough. Giving up wasn't an option. She needed a better foundation. Teacher Marin was her only hope. Swallowing her pride, Lila went to her. Teacher, the test. I wasn't ready. Marin nodded knowingly. Stonecross expects a lot. What do you need? Everything, Lila whispered. Maths, proper writing, things they know. Marin smiled. Then we begin, tonight, after your work. So began a grueling routine. Work all day, hauling, scrubbing, weeding. Then, by the dim lamplight in Marin's cramped room, lessons. Arithmetic problems made her head spin. Grammar rules tangled like weeds. Subject, verb, object Lila. The cat sat on the mat. Not sat the cat mat the on. Lila groaned, rubbing her eyes. It feels impossible, only because you're tired, Marin said gently. One step, then another. Progress was agonizingly slow. Some nights, exhaustion won. She'd fall asleep over her slate. Other nights, frustration boiled over. Why can't I understand this? She cried once, throwing down her chalk. Marin remained calm. Because it's hard, Lila. Learning is hard, especially when you're starting from further back. But hardness is an impossibility. Look. She pointed to a tiny crack in her stone windowsill. A fragile green shoot had pushed through. How? Lila breathed. Against all this stone, persistent roots, Marin said. Small, constant effort, over time. That's how life breaks stone. The lesson sank deep. Lila stopped expecting overnight miracles. She focused on the tiny effort. One sum solved. One paragraph written clearly. One new word mastered. She practiced writing on smooth stones by the river. Did sums in her head while weeding. She even started a small notebook. Mistakes to learn from. Page 1. Stone cross test. Underprepared. Need better maths. Clearer writing. Seeing it written made it less terrifying. Just a problem to solve. Benji sometimes mocked her nightly studies. Still chasing clouds, Lila. She just smiled faintly. Just planting seeds, Benji. She didn't explain. The seed was her belief. Small, buried deep, but alive. She watered it with effort, day after difficult day. For her mother's cough. For the dream that wouldn't die. The stony ground wouldn't win. The story continues. Lila eventually passes the clerk exam, moves to Stonecross, faces new challenges of city life and office politics, makes mistakes but learns, saves diligently, helps her mother, discovers a passion for organizing community records, faces a major setback when her office closes, but uses her skills to start a small village documentation project back in Amberwood, which blossoms in a regional resource center. The final chapters show her maturity, impact of her presence, and her rebelling. Chapter 8. Wings that carried others. Years flowed like the river beside Amberwood. Lila stood before a simple, sunlit building. The sign read, Amberwood Learning Nest. Her dream, built not just for herself, but for others. Inside, the murmur of young voices learning. Benji's son was there, tracing letters with fierce concentration. Lila watched, her heart full. The journey flashed before her, the dust, the hunger, the crushing loss, the sting of failure, the countless small efforts. The late nights studying, the careful saving of coins, the fears swallowed before each new step. The mistakes that became lessons. She remembered the weight of silence after her father died, the paralyzing fear before the Stonecross test, the despair of failure, the grind of learning while exhausted, the doubt that whispered she wasn't enough. She remembered the small choices, tracing letters in dirt dye, borrowing that first book, going back to Teacher Marin, trying the test again, learning one more rule, saving one more coin, believing just a little when belief felt impossible. It was never one grand leap. It was a million tiny wing beats, each one seemingly insignificant against the vast sky of hardship. But together, they carried her, not just over her own mountains, but to a place where she could help others find their wings. Elara, healthy now, stood beside her, pride shining in her eyes. "Look what your wing beats did, little bird." Layla smiled, tears of pure joy welling. She looked at the children, their faces bright with curiosity. "It was never just about flying high myself, Mama," she whispered. "It was about proving the air can be moved, that even from dust, something beautiful can grow, that no effort is ever wasted if you keep making it." She stepped into the learning nest. The journey hadn't ended. It had transformed. Her persistence had built a place where dreams could take root, where small wing beats would find encouragement, where the next child from the dust could look up and whisper, "One day," and believe it. Because Lila's story proved it was possible, one small persistent wing beat at a time.